Hello, everybody. My name is Kai Basu. I'm CTO of Covair. Good morning from California, and good afternoon and good evening to attendees from East Coast and Europe. Today, we are going to have a webinar on integration of existing ALM and SDLC tools to improve ROI. And I have with me our VP Engineering, Atnu Majumdar, and he will actually show you how this integration really works and how you can improve your ROI significantly. But before that, I will do a presentation, and in that presentation, I will introduce the overall integration of different tools in ALM and SDLC, and how you can actually do those integrations. There are multiple different approaches, and also I'll compare between these approaches, especially with respect to achieving those kinds of ROI. And then after that, we will go into product demonstration by Atnu. Okay, so let's start with the very first question is, why do we do integration? Now, it kind of intuitively makes sense that when we do development and in development we use a number of different tools, whether it is the development management tools like the requirements management, test management, issues management, or the actual development tool like the IDE, which includes, for example, the compiler, the builder, the make tool, debugger, profiler, etc., or for example, a number of different kinds of QA tools like the automated testing tool, load testing tools, the source code management tools, etc. So yes, it makes sense to integrate all of these tools together, but I think we need to also understand at a very high level what are the really good reasons to do those kinds of integration. First of all, to see the data in one tool when the data are coming from other tools, which we kind of call it data plumbing. Now, it really makes sense to actually see the data from other tools if those data are important to me. So if I'm a developer, it makes sense while sitting in my IDE, whether it's Eclipse or Visual Studio, to look at those requirements, those issues which I need to fix, or the requirements to implement, or for example, the test cases which has failed. But those things are in different management tools. So it makes sense to have that data available from other tools as well. Number two is the traceability, which basically means that when our particular artifact is changed, what is the impact of that artifact on other artifacts? So that is basically the change management. And one of the best way to actually manage that change is by creating the traceability relation between the different artifacts. But the artifacts are kind of trapped in different tools. So the integration makes a big kind of difference here when we have the integration between these tools, and we can create the traceability between the artifacts in these tools. The third is the process automation. So we always talk about the development process, development methodology, etc. Now, the problem with these processes are most often these processes are kind of limited within the boundary of a single tool. The moment you have to cross the boundary of a tool, the process breaks down. So it makes sense that when we are doing the integration, it must have a way to create a process and automate a process across the different boundaries of these different tools. And then we have the reporting and dashboarding. So if you want to really measure how is your development process working, how you are doing with respect to different phases of development, you have to measure them. Now, measuring them with respect to just one tool gives you an incomplete picture. So to create those kind of metrics, reports, and dashboarding, you need integration for that. So these are the kind of high-level justification for going into integration. The next question is, how do you do the integration? And here are the three most popular ways of achieving integration. The first is a point-to-point integration. As a matter of fact, most of the vendors offer you this kind of integration. And this is the most basic and simplest in terms of the architecture. So what you do in a point-to-point integration is, if I'm a vendor of a tool, I will create a special integration code between my tool and the other tool. That may be from another vendor, and that may be some internal tool of my customer. And I'll create each individual coding between my tool and the other tool, whatever makes sense. So each of this integration code is a handcrafted between each pair of tools. And one good thing about this is that you can actually use all of your existing tools, which includes all the best-of-breed multi-vendor tools. And any third-party developer can actually develop these integrations, provided, of course, the vendor offers the API as a public domain or as a published kind of entity. The second option is when a single vendor, and especially these are the large vendors, they offer an integrated suite of tools. So from this vendor's point of view, actually it makes a lot of sense. They sell all of these different tools together, and since they are the developer and owner of all these tools, they can actually create a very well-defined integration between all of these tools. The only problem is that, of course, you have to use all of these tools from that particular vendor, and also integration is developed by the vendor, so you don't have much say about how those integrations actually work. And the third way is actually a very new way of doing the ALM integration, is by ALM integration middleware. So the middleware is a technology which is also known as enterprise service bus architecture, which is being used in other industries for quite some time, but it is a new architecture, a new technology for the ALM and SDLC space. And here you can still kind of integrate the best-of-breed existing tools, but you are not creating a point-to-point integration. Here, for each of these tools, there is an adapter for connecting that particular tool to the middleware. And once that particular tool is connected to the middleware, all the other tools which are connected to the middleware kind of becomes integrated with that tool. That is the beauty of this middleware architecture. And in this particular case also, the third-party developers can create these adapters. As a matter of fact, each of the vendors can create adapters for their own tools to connect to this middleware. Now, if you look at the architectural difference between the enterprise service bus, the middleware, and the point-to-point custom integration, graphically it looks like this. So for a point-to-point custom integration, you need the integration between every pair of tools. So if you want a 100% integration, which basically means from any tool, you should be able to access the data from the other tool, create the traceability, etc., then you need a point-to-point integration between all of them. So for example, if you have got 10 tools, and here is an example of 10 tools, you need actually 45 custom coded integration. So mathematically, it is actually n into n minus 1 divided by 2, an order of n squared. Whereas for middleware architecture, you actually need one adapter per tool. So for 10 tools, you just need 10 adapters. So overall complexity point of view, middleware is much less complex than a point-to-point integration. And also think about this. If you have to replace one tool, in case of point-to-point integration, you have to actually replace 9 different integrations from that tool to all the other 9 tools. But in case of middleware, you have to just replace one adapter, which is a substantial savings in terms of effort and cost. Now, these are the kind of comparison between the 3 approaches of integration, point-to-point, the single vendor, and the middleware. I will just highlight those 4 items which are kind of highlighted in white. So first of all, the process. Now, it will be very difficult to do automated process when you have a point-to-point integration. As you can see, that since each of these integration code is handcrafted and very, very customized between the pair of tools, then creating a process across these different tools is almost impossible. As a matter of fact, it does not exist in a point-to-point integration world. In a single vendor integration, it is possible because the vendor itself, they are creating that, so they can actually create that process across the different tools. The only problem is that process is also defined by the vendor with a very limited scope of customization. But in a middleware, actually, you can define the process and you can create the process across these different tool boundaries. And as a matter of fact, Atanu will show you the product demonstration. You will get a flavor of how this process really works. The second point is about the effort to create and maintain integration with the tool. As you can see that between the tools, if you have to create the custom integration, and as we have seen that 45 in custom integration you have to create for 10 tools, it becomes really, really difficult to do it in a point-to-point integration. For a single vendor integration, it's much easier because the vendor is doing all this integration. So effort from the customer's point of view is very low. For the ALM integration using middleware, it is also low because it is just a matter of creating a single adapter per tool. So overall effort and the cost of creating this integration is very low. Now, then comes the utilization of existing tools. It's actually very good for both point-to-point and middleware because you are actually integrating the existing tools. But unfortunately, it is not very good for a single vendor integration because the single vendor is actually asking you to rip and replace your existing tools and replace by their own tools. The problem is, first of all, you may not like a particular tool from that particular vendor where you are already using a better tool. And number two is that sometimes what happens is that you may have a very cheap tool available to you, whereas you have to replace it by a more expensive tool from that vendor. So that's why the utilization of existing tools doesn't exist for single vendor integration. And finally, if you look at the cost for a point-to-point integration to create and manage all those different integrations is very high. For single vendor integration also it's very high because you have to replace all of your existing tools by the single vendor tool. But for a middleware, it's actually pretty low because really we are talking about the adapters for your existing tools. Now this is an example of different integrations of a number of different tools. As a matter of fact, these are the same tools we'll be using in our demonstration. So we have got here Requisite Pro from IBM Rational, Eclipse, Visual Studio from Microsoft, Subversion, Quality Center from HP Mercury, and we'll be using Covair for the project management and also issues management. So quickly, let's go through the benefits. So we have already talked about why we want to do the integration, but if you go to a more detail, then these are all these different kinds of benefits you get by doing integration. Gain a greater insight of what is really happening when you have got all these tools working together. You can enact the best practice processes as we are talking about having an automated process across the tools. Overcome the challenge for globally distributed development, which is a reality now. And when you have a distributed development, you have different groups are using different tools at different locations. Without a proper integration, it becomes very difficult to manage such a distributed team. They enable the collaboration between the stakeholders. Again, the stakeholders are all in different places and using different tools. So when I can see the data from other stakeholders, I have got a better understanding what is really happening. And overall, it increases the productivity. You will be able to deliver faster. And we'll see when we go into the ROI calculation, this is one of the major outcomes. So let's go ahead with the other benefits. One of the other benefits is enhance the customer satisfaction. So at the end of the day, it is the customer you are making your product for, and if you have a higher quality product and you can give it earlier, of course, your customer is satisfied. Improve the quality. One of the biggest advantage of coming out of this is your overall quality increases, both in terms of the process quality as well as your end product quality. You can collect the actionable matrices and intelligence, and these are all the different metrics and reports are being used to gain those kinds of improvement in the quality and productivity. You can manage the change in confidence. Change is the only constant, as we know, and one of the biggest problems is how do you manage the change using this traceability between the artifacts and different tools gives you a way to actually manage that change with confidence. And finally, today you are using a set of tools, tomorrow you want to replace some of the tools, and this kinds of integration actually allows you to plug and play those kinds of tools. Even multiple groups using different tools for the same purpose. Let's say one group is using Eclipse, another group is using Visual Studio, and still you can work between these groups along with the other tools. Now, if we look at the ROI calculation framework, that is actually the focus of our today's webinar, that at the end of the day, so what is the ROI? Because that is what the CFO will ask you. So ROI is one area which is a little, I would say, fuzzy, because everybody can calculate their ROI their own way. And it's a little difficult to also to do the ROI calculation, because there is always a question of before and after. So if you do not have the before number, then how can you calculate the ROI once you have implemented the integration? But these are the kind of framework and guideline which you can use for your ROI calculation. First of all, you can do an integrated engineering process enactment, and this will actually gives you an enhancement of productivity to 6 to 8%. These percentages are typically from a number of different ways of looking at the process, and this will give you about 6 to 8% from the before and after. The integration ensures the code quality and performance throughout the SDLC process, and you will reduce the defect by about from 8 to 10%, and these are all the kind of industry standard numbers. And obviously your mileage can vary depending on your project size, the number of people, etc. Quicker software delivery by decreasing the interstage transition time. This is actually one of the biggest challenges of today, that you want to get your product earlier so that you don't miss the windows of opportunity. Every month you can cut down by your development cost or development time, actually increases your overall benefits, whatever overall revenue substantially. So we have kind of calculated about 2 months of early release of your product. And then you have a number of different soft kind of benefit, which also goes to ROI, but sometimes it's difficult to kind of calculate those, like the seamless flow of artifacts from one stage to another stage, mapping and traceability of delivery across the SDLC stages, consolidated reporting, increased business insight to proceed with the strategies. Okay? Now, I'll give you an example, a sample ROI calculation. Once again, there are certain assumptions, like we have taken a $1 million project for 1 year by, let's say, 12 people, average 80K kind of cost per person, and the project cost is amortized over 3 years. So these are kind of assumption of a typical project. Then, if that is the assumption, what is the savings in dollars? So if you look at the productivity gain, we have said 6 to 8%, that's about 60K to 80K for a $1 million project. The defect reduction is about 10%. Now, assuming the rework, if you take all the rework throughout the project, it's about 35 to 40% of overall project effort. So if we say that 10% is the defect reduction, which amounts to about 35 to 40K. The early revenue, we said that we can have a 2 months, and if we do based on a 3-year amortization, that comes to about 60K additional revenue. And reduction in meeting, for example, all the interaction we'll be doing, we are supposed to do without the integration actually is reduced, assuming about 40 minutes saving per person per day, and that actually comes down to about 80K. So if you add all of them together, it comes to 235K to 260K, which is about, let's say, 25% savings in project cost, which is actually a substantial savings in terms of implementing the integration. But one thing I should mention here, and this is very, very important, the 3 approaches I have shown you, these kinds of ROI is achievable only if you use the middleware. If you use any kind of integration, there will be improvement in the ROI, there will be a lot of benefits you will be seeing. But the kind of benefit we are talking about here is only achievable if you use middleware. It is not achievable by a point-to-point integration or if you use a single vendor integration. So here is, for example, with respect to Covair, a series of different tools from different vendors and the adapters we have in Covair. And this is actually a kind of expanding list. Almost every quarter we are releasing the new adapters for a number of different tools. And you can see that for almost every function in SDLC, we have got multiple tools from multiple vendors. So today's demo scenario will be, Atanu will show you that submitting a requirement, a customer requirement from a corporate website. This is an integration with your own internal website, like a corporate website, portal, intranet, etc. So that's one kind of integration. Then we'll follow the process we are talking about in Covair. And then in Requisite Pro, IBM Rational will create some functional requirements and link between the customer and functional requirement in Requisite Pro. Then we'll create a new test case in Quality Center, which is from HP. We'll create source files in Subversion. Then we'll look at all of these things from Eclipse and Visual Studio. Eclipse is, as you know, it is an open source IDE, and VSTS is from Microsoft. And finally, we will look at some of the number of different kinds of reporting and dashboarding in Covair. All right, so I'll hand it over to Atanu. Let's see. So Atanu, you are on.
Thanks, Sky. Good morning, everybody. So as Sky mentioned that in today's demo, we will see that different stakeholders or roles in application development are using their own preferred tools for doing their development jobs. We will show how Covair Omnibus integration middleware is integrating these tools and helping the stakeholders to do their job better. So let's start. We will start with submitting a requirement from a portal site. As you can see, this is a portal site we have created for the purpose of this webinar demo. But you can set up your portal for your customers, or it could be your corporate portal. So now let's put a title for this requirement: customer requirement webinar demo from portal. And let's put the author as John King. Let's put the Covair as the company name. We'll choose requirement type as customer, request type as new feature, and keep all these things the default ones. And we'll set the priority to high. And let's put some description for this. Now what I will do is we will submit this customer requirement. So what should happen is this customer requirement should be submitted into Covair repository through Covair Omnibus integrations middleware. Now let's go to the Covair application. So this is the Covair application login screen, and I will log in as ALM analyst. So this is the dashboard for ALM, and you can see that the different reports. This is a live dashboard with the data coming from different tools used by different stakeholders throughout the life cycle stages. You can see that the new requirement, customer requirement just submitted from the portal side, we can see that by, and if we drill down from this pie chart, you see this is the customer requirement webinar demo from portal, and the ID number is 243. So this is a live dashboard, and as you can see that it's showing up-to-date data and even though the data is coming from portal site or different tools. So now let's go to My Task page for Alan. So this is the inbox for Alan where he can see all the tasks assigned to him across all the workspaces that he is working on. So you can see that the task status, owner, activity, and the workspace. Now you remember that we just submitted the requirement from the portal site, and that requirement should start its lifecycle process in Covair automatically as soon as it is submitted, and the task should be generated for Alan to assign a project and associate either new functional requirements or existing requirements for that customer requirement. Now you can see that this is the task in Alan's inbox. This is the customer requirement 243 ID, and the title is webinar demo from portal. Okay, so now let's get to the detail of this task. So you see this is the task for the source item requirement, and the title is customer requirement webinar demo from portal. Owner is Alan or Mark. Either of the analysts can work on this. And also activity is what? Associate project and functional requirements. There is an instruction also. Please associate functional requirements to this customer requirement. Also associate a project to this customer requirement. So as per instruction, what Alan will do is assign a project. In this case, it is restaurant reservation system. And also, he needs to associate some new functional requirements or existing requirements. So for now, we'll click on the relate existing, and you see these are the different existing functional requirements shown in a document-like format with rich text images and graphs, as you can see here. So let's choose some of these requirements, let's say 233 and 232, and link this functional requirement with this particular customer requirement. So now Alan is done with his task, and he can complete the task. And you see here now the task is no longer in Alan's inbox. It is as it is completed. Now let's go to the requirements list page. And you see this is a process view of the requirements. And you see our requirement, customer requirement number 243. And you see the current owner now has changed from Alan. It is either Autonu, Mary, or Sky. Any one of them can work on this. And let's look into the visual process modeler for this particular process. So you see this is a drag and drop process designer, and you see the blue colored box, which is the current activity that is assigned to Mary, and the activity is review. And you can see the green box, which was the Alan's task as a business analyst, and since this task is completed, it is shown in green. So now since the next task is for Mary and the activity is review, let's log in as Mary, and Mary is the manager. So this is Mary's inbox, and you can see the task showing in his inbox, the customer requirement webinar demo. So now let's get to the detail of this task. You can see the activity is review, instruction is please review this requirement, and the linked functional requirements. So Mary can look at the linked functional requirements. So see, these are the two requirements that were associated by Alan. and now she needs to decide as to whether she wants to approve these or not. So let's for this particular demo, Mary says it is approved, and she completes the task. So now you see that it is no longer in Mary's inbox. Let's go back to the process modeler and refresh it, and you will see now the review box is green since Mary has completed her task, and the other two next boxes are blue, but those are the parallel activities that needs to be done as a next step process. Okay, so now Mary has approved the requirement. Now let's get to Requisite Pro. Let's kind of open up. So Mark is analyst, and he wants to do more detailing of this requirement before the developer can start working on it. So he is using Rational Requisite Pro. And let's log in into Requisite Pro. So this is the Requisite Pro interface, Rational Requisite Pro interface. And see, this is the requirement that was submitted from the website, customer requirement webinar demo from portal. You can double click on that and see all the information is there. Now what Mark wants, he wants to create a new functional requirement. So functional requirement, let's put the title as functional requirement for webinar demo from Rec Pro, and put the same thing as description. Let's change the attribute, the priority to high, and also he wants to kind of trace this functional requirement from our customer requirement. Now save it. Now if we go back to the customer requirement, you will see that it is tracing to the new functional requirement created in Requisite Pro. So Mark is now done with the detailing of the requirement, and developer can now start working on it, as well as tester can also start creating test cases. So now we will go to Quality Center. So Ted is the tester, and he now wants to basically do the test planning to test this particular requirement. So let's log on as Ted. So this is the requirements tab within the Quality Center, and you can see that the customer requirement submitted from the portal site we just did, that is showing up here in the requirements list. And we want to note one thing here is that you don't see the other requirements either from Covair or from Rec Pro showing up here. So this is an example of a conditional synchronization supported by Covair Omnibus middleware. So that means it is set up such a way that only the approved requirements from Covair will flow to QC for further test planning. Not other requirements would get to QC. Okay. Now Ted clicks on the test plan. He now wants to create a test case for this particular requirement. So he creates a test case. So let's say test case for web in a demo from QC. So this is the test case. Now what he wants to do is also select the requirement, customer requirement, to be kind of covered by this particular test case. Okay, so this is done. Now if I go back to the requirement and open it up, if you will see that it shows up in the new test case that we created, it shows up as a test covered by this test coverage for this particular requirement. So Ted is now done with his test planning and creating the test cases. Now what we'll do is we'll log into Eclipse. Now Dave is the developer who is using Eclipse for his development. So this is Eclipse interface, the IDE, and you can see that there is an omnibus add in menu here. So if you connect, so Dave is now connecting to Omnibus, Covair Omnibus, and you see an Omnibus Explorer shows up here, where we see all the workspaces that Dave is working on. So for our case, it was the Covair high-level demo project, and you can see the task. Similarly, the Mary and Alan was finding their task within Covair. Dave, being a developer, and his primary tool is Eclipse, so he could see his task also from within the Eclipse. Okay, so as you can see the different tasks, whether it's status and activities and stuff like that. Now he can also see the list of requirements, and you see this is the customer requirement webinar demo from portal. So it shows up here in his within the ID. Okay. And now what we can do is we can open up this particular requirement in detail view, and you see all the information is shown here as a native Eclipse interface. You can go to the traceability section, and you see here that all these items, this is the functional requirement created by Mark from Requisite Pro. It shows up here as a traceable items. These 233 and 232, those are the functional requirements associated by Alan as a part of his task from Covair. And then Ted created the test case in QC that also shows up here. So as a developer, I can go open up all these items and have complete knowledge about what needs to be done to implement this particular requirement. So this is now, Dave is done with his part of exploring the requirement. Now what he wants to basically go implement this requirement. So Dave is using SBN, Tortoise SBN for his source control system. So let's say he wants to write the code for this particular requirement, and he creates a new source code file. Let's say web inner demo 1.src, and then he opens up the thing here and let's put this cut and paste and put this code here. So he puts this code here, saves it, and now he has to add to tortoise first. So this is done. Now he is committing his code. And this should create a change set. Who are familiar with SBN, you know that you can commit your code work, either a new file or changed files. It can be committed as a change set. So here that change set number is 164. Please remember this, that this is the revision kind of change set number. So now he is done with his code file. So what we will do now is we will open up a Visual Studio interface, and this is also the similar kind of interface as Eclipse. You will see that the Omnibus admin menu here, and you can connect. So Dave is again connecting as developer, and you see the Omnibus Explorer, and you can see the Covair high-level demo is getting shown here. You can see the task, and also, so similarly, all the tasks you can see here, and you can work from here. And that is the thing that Sky was mentioning, that kind of process across boundaries. So now process is triggered in Covair, and it is creating the task one after another as people are kind of completing their task. But Dave, as a developer, from within his IDE, can see this task and can work on those tasks and complete that. Okay. So now what I will do is I will open up the requirement list again here, and if we go down, should see our requirement here, customer requirement. See here, that is shown up here, and let's open this requirement. Okay, so similarly, like in Eclipse, I can see the whole thing. Now I want to do some activity, so it is the traceability tab that we see here. And what I want to do is the change set that I've just committed to SBN. I would like to link that change set to this particular requirement, because that was the code to implement this particular requirement. So what I'll do is I'll go see the change set list and see whether it is yes. It shows up change set 164 that was just committed by the Deb. So now what I'll do is I'll link this here. So in the traceability, it's one more item now. This change set is shown here. And what I'll do is set this particular requirement. And you can see that this is getting set. Also, what I can see here is my activity log. And you see that just modify requirement. It is, this activity was done without any error, because sometimes it is kind of a lot of transactions are happening through Covair Omnibus integrations middleware, and these are all asynchronous operations. So I can see exactly which activity is kind of successful without any error and things like that through this activity log. So now Deb is done. He has implemented the code and he has linked that change set with the particular requirement. So far what we have observed is all the different stakeholders, they could do their job. Like Mark could detail out the requirement using Requisite Pro, and he can see all the items coming from different tools. Tate could do his test planning in Quality Center, and there also he can see items coming from Covair. The requirement was there, and he can link it. Dave, as a developer from Visual Studio, Eclipse, he can see all the items coming from Rec Pro, Quality Center, Covair, SBN, and set up traceability, do his job, and complete the thing. So all the stakeholders can do their job from within their preferred environment, and also they are up to date with the latest status and changes on all the project items. Now let's go back to Covair and see. So let's now log on as AIM. So this is Mary's view, and we'll go to the requirements. So you see this customer requirement. I will go to the detail of this particular requirement. And what Mary wants to see is this impact analysis section. So now see, this is a kind of visual network diagram where the multi-level traceability between your different items coming from different tools is shown in a visual format. You can see this is the project, and this is the customer requirement, and then these are the different functional requirements. You can see that this is the functional requirement from the RegPro. Also, you see the test case, you see the change set. You can expand the notes to see the further requirements that are associated with this particular requirement. So what you see here, you see an exact kind of impact that you can basically analyze the impact. If you need to change any item here, what would be the impact on the scope, that you can see easily from here. Okay, so now what Mary wants to do next is to see an end-to-end traceability between the items that we just generated in different tools. So let's start with the top item as the project, which in this case is the restaurant reservation system. Okay, so let's find out our requirements. So this is our requirement, customer requirement webinar demo from portal number 243. Now if I expand this, I can see that this particular customer requirement traces to the change set. Remember the change set kind of submitted by Dave, and also all the other functional requirements that have been kind of associated. And you can see the RegPro requirement here, functional requirement for webinar demo from RegPro number 244. Other two functional requirements that was associated by ALM. You can see also the test case coming from QC. So, and also if I now expand the change set, you see the code file that was contained in the change set. I can now navigate to this file, and you can see even the file history would be shown here. In this case, it was a new file, and also I can see the file content. So I can click on this and open with a notepad, and you see this is the source code. One thing to note here is that this particular file or file content is not stored in Covair. It is getting fetched from SBN on demand. So this is an example of a federated integration that is supported by Covair, Omnibus Integration Middleware. Now let's look into some of the integrated reporting and dashboard. So let's open up this requirement specification document. So this is a nicely formatted Word document created, and it would show all the kind of items that we have created in different tools in a traceable format in this kind of Word document. And this template is customizable. You can create your own templates, and it would generate as per your template. So now it's downloading that Word template. Now see, so this is the template, this is the Word report, requirement specification document generated on the fly with all the live data. So now let's update these pages, and let's go back, find out our customer requirement. So this is the thing, customer requirement webinar demo from portal. So we can basically kind of scroll to these, and you see this is our customer requirement from portal, and then the associated functional requirements, these are shown here. Okay, this is the item 17.3 that is from webinar demo from the Rec Pro. You can see the test case here, you see the change set, you see the file. So you get all these informations within this document, and this is a kind of nicely formatted document with all the, you can see all the images, and so it's a nicely formatted document. Okay, now let's move to some of the other dashboards. Let's go to dashboards. Now one other thing that I would like to show you here as a, so if I now go here and click on this functional requirement pie chart, and you see the functional requirement for webinar demo from Rec Pro, it shows up here. So this is a live dashboard, and it shows all the data as it is coming from different tools. Now let's go to the analyst developer dashboard. So you can see here as the analyst developer tester, I would like to see this kind of reports, like I want to see which requirements are covered by code files. So like say in our case, this is the customer requirement webinar demo from portal number 243, and it is already covered by a code file. So I know that some work is already done on this. I can see the test run status over priority. So these test runs are getting done in QC, but I can see the results here. Okay, you can see also your requirement, whether it is test covered. So you see our requirement, customer requirement webinar demo from portal, it is kind of covered by test cases. I see one test case is kind of linked with this. If you will also be able to see your run status of the test cases and all these other reports. Again, all these data, as you can see, is coming live from different tools. So we would like to see another dashboard. So this is a project manager dashboard, and I would like to basically detail out one particular one. As you can see the different trend reports and the status reports, the distributions and stuff like that. I'd like to kind of get into this detail one. So this is an example of a kind of how a project manager can kind of do some check for the release readiness. Okay, so you can see that these are the different box, and against which all the kind of the total test cases, total features, total files, that the count they can see. And so if I kind of sort by the related files, you can see the bug which is with a large number of files. That basically tells you that this bug has kind of been worked on so many code files have been changed, so should we kind of release this particular bug as a part of this particular release or not? So you can do some kind of actionable kind of intelligence you get from here and do the proper decision making with this kind of reports. So I think that's kind of conclude the demo part. Now I'll hand it over to Sky.
Thank you, Atanu. That was actually a very detailed kind of demonstration of the ALM middleware by including so many different tools. Please use your that question panel, which you will see on right-hand side, and we'll be very happy to answer any question you may have. And actually, I've got a couple of questions already there, so let me start answering them. So one of the questions was that, will the requirements management tool be covered? As a matter of fact, this webinar is for where integration only, though you have seen a little bit of requirements management as a tool of Covair. So if you're interested, actually you can go to our website and ask for different tools, the demo for different tools like the requirements management. So for example, you can go to this is the contact information you can see there. Send an email to sales@covair.com, or you can call that number. Okay, the second question I have is whether we need to use the Covair tools for integration only. The answer is actually no. You can use our integration ALM middleware, the Omnibus, alone without using any of the Covair tools like the requirements management or issues or test management. You can use your own requirements management or any of these different tools. So you can just use the integration without the tools. What is the time to create an adapter? Typically, it's about 6 to 8 man weeks it takes to create an adapter. So basically, we can actually have an adapter created in a calendar time, almost in a maybe about 4 to 6 weeks. Again, another question about the time. How much time does it take to implement a fully integrated ALM or SDLC? So the answer to that is depends on, of course, how many tools you are integrating. But on an average, it will be about 4 to 6 weeks, I would say, when all the adapters are there to basically put the integrations together, create the process across the tools, and all of these things. So, about 4 to 6 weeks, I think, will be a good number. Next one is, can Covair handle functional requirements itself? Yes. As I mentioned, that Covair has a very powerful requirements management tool itself, and we have customers who just uses our requirements management tool, and it compares very well with any other point solution in the market. And again, contact our salespeople, and they will be very happy to share with you information about our requirements management tool. The next question is, can we link documents from a document management system to the requirements? Yes, absolutely, we can do that. As a matter of fact, the document management system like iManage or SharePoint, so if you have documents in those document management systems, just like you have seen the Subversion integration, where a Subversion file is linked with the requirements, similarly, you can also link documents from the document management system to the requirements. The next question is, how large is your current installation? Okay, so we have, for integration especially, we have a very large implementation. One of the largest service company out of India, as a matter of fact, one of the largest in the world. So they have actually implemented Covair Omnibus, which is our integration middleware, and that is currently using about 14 different tools, and these tools include IBM Rational tools, Microsoft, HP, open source tools, and even their own internal tools. And about 4,500 different developers are actually using it, distributed all over the world. they are expanding it to about 15,000 people, 15,000 developers to use it. So that is possibly one of the largest ecosystem of tools as well as the largest usage of an integrated SDLC. What is the cost per user seat? Well, as you can understand that there are many different configurations possible with Covair, so I won't be able to give you a pricing at this point of time, but our salespeople will be very happy to talk to you about that. So once again, please contact our sales@covair.com, and we'll be very happy to talk to you and find out what is your exact situation and answer that. One other question is, does it do the data dictionary and decomposition and time and cost analysis based on, let's see, what does it say? Based on it, okay. The answer all of them is yes. So our requirements management is a pretty sophisticated tool. As a matter of fact, one of the most feature-rich requirements management tool in the market. So you can actually do the data dictionary. We actually call it a glossary. So you can embed, for example, the glossary terms in your requirements description and consistently use it in different descriptions. Also, you can do the time estimation. And we are actually introducing a very new tool in the system where you can, as a matter of fact, do the resource and project planning for a number of different requirements and kind of very accurately predict what is the total number of resource required, what is the time frame required for a set of requirements, and you can do many different scenarios and compare between the scenarios, etc. Does you have use case and requirement, FDD requirement? I don't understand. Requirement. So yes, so Covair can be used for both use case analysis as well as the requirements management, as I mentioned. I think that's basically the questions I have, and I'm sure that you have got more questions, and we'll be very happy to answer your questions more focused towards your own needs. So I will once again encourage you to send us an email or call us in the number shown on the screen. This is our pleasure to do the demonstration and the presentation, and the whole webinar recording will be available from our website. So at any point of time in a couple of days, you can come back to our website and see the recording of the same demo and presentation. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.